What's up everyone, Will here again with Commander Drill, coming at you with another tutorial guide, and no, it's not on Card Conjure, but we will be utilizing Card Conjure briefly in this guide. Today's guide is actually going to be on the GIMP program. This is basically like Photoshop, it's just a free version, so it's more accessible to others, and I'm just going to be showing you how to alter cards in GIMP in the post-editing process to give your cards, more flair and a lot more customization. So the first thing we're going to do is just hop over to Card Conjure. Now this method is a great method if you plan on doing like a big project. I highly recommend doing this. What we're going to actually be doing is creating and saving a frame and then downloading that frame to use in future projects. For this tutorial, we're just going to be doing one card, but I'm going to show you why it's so useful and it can save you a lot of time. So once you've decided on the frame you want to use and the project that you're going to do, for this, I always default to the nickname Godzilla. It's just the most used, easiest frame to work on, so I'm just going to be showing that. Essentially, I'm going to be making a Scarab God with a solo leveling altar, so it would be blue and black. Now I've already went ahead and created it, but just real quick I'll recreate it here. Okay, so we have the basic frame, but I am also gonna go ahead and add an inner crown. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Then I actually will add the 1/8 margin. If you're not familiar with any of this, I recommend you watch my Card Conjure tutorial. Shows you how to do all this stuff. Add the 1/8 margin. You definitely need it if you're going to print with a third-party service. And then as you can see here, I actually forgot the power and toughness. So to go back without messing it up, I'm just going to uncheck the auto load. And I'm just going to really quick go back into nickname Godzilla and grab that. Now, one thing that's cool is you can actually use power and toughnesses from different sets. It doesn't have to be from the same set. That's just a personal preference if you choose to do so. Okay. So I've already downloaded this frame, but all you would really do is just download it, and then what it's going to end up looking like, I ended up making it slightly different, so I guess I will just download this one. You'll just see a blank frame with nothing else on it. That's exactly what we want. And the cool thing about GIMP is you can just go in, right click it, and open it directly with GIMP. And then it's going to pop up. It'll load up your frame in GIMP. The reason for doing it this way is it'll automatically format the size that it wants to be. Now, usually when you 1/8 margin, the size is going to usually be 1632 by 2220, almost always, but if yours is ever a different size, just make sure it matches, because you can also just open up a new program or a new file in GIMP, and then you can manually put it in. And if you do it this way, just make sure you go to advanced options and you fill the background with transparency. It'll make sure that this is clear and not like a solid color. So just a little helpful bit there. And now the reason why we do this like this is because I actually, when I go into Card Conjure, once I've made my frames, I will just start creating text. And the reason for that is when I do like a project, like I did a Genshin project, and I will create, let me go back, I will create all of my frames. So these are all custom frames that I've made myself, and that's a guide for another video. But I create all my frames ahead of time, that way I can just go in and start editing, and then all I need to do at that point with Card Conjure is just create my text. So like with this, we don't even need any of our frames anymore, and it's still auto-loaded to the nickname Godzilla. So I can just go in, you can see I already actually had the Scarab God loaded, so to get it to reload again, I have to create something else and then just go back to it. It's kind of goofy, but anyways, I'm just going to make it load that, and then just go right back, and then just delete the artwork, and as you can see, it preloads the text, and then you would just want to go in, and like create your name. I actually already just did that before I started the video just to save some time. So I won't bother with the flavor, the nickname, and all that. But that's all you gotta do. And then you can just go down and download it. And it'll just download the text. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here's just the text by itself. And when you're doing like a big project like that, it's so helpful because I'm able to just, you know, do the next card, put in the cards, download the text, and then I can just go in here and start editing. So now that we have our frame, all we have to do is just click and drag the text in to GIMP like this. Click, drag, give it a sec, and it'll pop right up like this. Now, you can reorder how it is. If you put it below, obviously it's going to be behind it and it's going to be dark. So we always want the text on top. Now, another thing I recommend doing is saving your project. Sometimes GIMP will crash. I mean, any programs can randomly crash if you do something weird or it messes up. So I always recommend saving my projects, just because if you're in the middle of editing and you lose everything, it's very frustrating, especially when you're doing a lot of over-the-top like art. So yeah, I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, so I have saved my file. Now the next step here is taking whatever artwork you're wanting to use and just plopping it on in. So I already got my solo leveling art, so I'm just going to click and drag it right into GIMP. And as you can see, because the size of the art is a lot bigger than the file size, it's gonna show that. I also upscaled this card, so the quality of the art is a lot more than it normally is. Once you've put in the art in, and you select whatever layer the art is on, which you typically want the art on the bottom underneath the frame. It usually goes art, frame, text, almost always, so just remember that order. At the top here, this is your tool that lets you move it around and everything. So how I like to usually position the card is to first line it up however you want it to be, and then you go up to Tools, Transform, Scale, which is also just Shift S, by the way. Click that, and this is going to allow you to rescale your card. So I'm going to scale it all the way down. We want to make sure it's in the box in that it's covering all of that transparency. So I'm going to get it just like that, and then just press scale. It'll take a little moment. And then as you can see here, our scaling is looking much better. Now you can tell from that space on the bottom and the top that we have some wiggle room to move it up and down, but not so much wiggle room because I made it like an exact fit on the sides, because you don't want to, if you accidentally do it like that and there's like a little transparency gap, your card's going to look messed up. So just make sure that it is within, it's covering all of the art, and then I'm going to move that like that. I think we like how that looks. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna save again. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, okay, you could have just done this in Card Conjure. Well, that's true, but now is where this is the time where we can actually start doing our post-editing stuff and transforming this card into something really cool. So the first thing that I always like to do with text when it comes to full art is I love to give it a shadow box. This is just a preference. The shadow box just makes it easier to read. So we're going to click on our text layer, and then to add a shadow box, you're going to go to Filters, Light and Shadow, and then it's Drop Shadow. By default, you'll see it automatically added this very tiny shadow. You probably actually can't tell. But we're going to be messing with these settings here to give it a really nice shadow box. Now, I do already have my own preset. I just need to find which one it is. I think it's this one. Yeah. Okay, so this is my preset. If you want to copy it, feel free. You can also adjust it to your liking. Obviously, you can make the shadow box even thicker if you really want to. I personally like it right at 6. I feel like it's very subtle, but it makes it way easier to read. opacity is 1.0, blur radius 1, and then my X and Y is 1. The X and Y is how much of an offset the shadow has. I want the shadow to almost look like it's casting off the card and it's right behind the text. I think that looks really nice, very clean. So once you have it set to this, or however you want to set it, feel free to adjust it. You can even change the color if you really want to. There's a lot of freedom with that. Just press OK, and we'll save. So that already looks a lot nicer in my opinion. It gives it a nice little 3D effect, and it's also way more legible, especially when we start editing our art over the frame, which is what we're going to start doing next. It's going to look really nice. So speaking of that, the reason why we're doing this in layers is because we can just turn things off when we want to edit. So for a card like this, or just any card in general, you kind of want to assess how the card looks and determine what you think should go over the frame. Not everything should go over a frame. So like with a card like this, I would probably want to put his hand and the blade in front of the frame here, maybe his head, but we just kind of like play it by ear. I haven't altered this card or this art before, so we're just going to kind of dive in and give it a shot. So you're going to want to make sure you have the layer selected that has the artwork, and we're going to be using the free select or the lasso tool, and we're going to be basically lassoing and copying the part that we want and then pasting it into the frame, which would put it over the frame box. Now, there might be other methods on doing this, maybe some that are easier. This is my preferred method, and this is the best way I know how to do it. So, I mean, if there's better methods that you're aware of, feel free to do those that way. This is just my tutorial on how I do them. So yeah. Now you can also disable the frame too. Since we know his whole hand and the whole blade is what we want, I can comfortably start the lasso tool like this, just by clicking, and then I'll just disable the frame now since I don't need it, just to help me see where I want to go. Now you can click each point, or you can hold and drag. If you've got a steady hand and the right mouse settings, you can just click and drag this whole thing. When there's lots of like sharp shapes like this, I like to just do it with clicks. But if it's very rounded and everything, you can totally just do it by hand. Whatever works for you. So I'm gonna speed this part up because this can take a couple minutes. It just depends how quick you are at doing it. So I'm just gonna speed this up while I fill this out. One thing I just want to point out right here, the reason why I brought the frame back in is because I don't need to cut all of this. As soon as I know I'm over that frame line, I'm good to stop it right there. And also, don't worry about this being absolutely perfect. It'll look good either way. Okay, and that's all we need to do. So the last thing is just to make sure to connect your original point. Once you got it, it should look like this. If for whatever reason you accidentally finished it while you were clicked onto the wrong layer, that's okay. Just make sure you click back to the right one, and all you need to do is press Control-C. That's going to copy this entire thing, and then we're just going to move over to the frame layer and Control-V, which pastes. And then you're going to see a floating selection. You can either put it on a new layer if you want, or you can anchor it to the frame. If you anchor it to the frame, even when you have the art disabled, you're going to see that it's now on the frame itself. So this is fine, assuming you don't need to go back and change anything. If you mess up, though, it's kind of a pain. You have to like go back and just like Control-Z and undo it. Otherwise, that frame is going to constantly look like that. Another option that you have, rather than anchoring it. Oh! And there is a perfect example of why I save. So I just crashed it. So yeah, I'm glad I, you know, it doesn't crash very often, which is funny. Like, it rarely ever crashes, but I'm kind of glad I got that on video just to show you guys why it's important to save. That is really unfortunate that it happened right as I finished. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and recreate that real quick. Okay, we are back to where we started. So again, Control C, and then Control V. Now this time, like I was about to do, I'm going to do it as a new layer. And I'm going to hit save right away. So the nice thing about just doing a new layer is you can do all your editing as its own layer. So this pasted layer will just become the spot where I will add any over the frame stuff. So that way I can just disable it, enable it like that. But yeah, as you can see, that looks really cool. The blade actually visually makes sense that it would be coming over the frame. You kind of want to judge positioning. Sometimes there's spots, you know, where you might want to put something over the frame, but it like doesn't, it's like in the background, so it doesn't make sense that it would be in front. Nice thing about this one is, you know, there's not a whole lot we need to even do to it. I'd probably want to put his head maybe in front of that, so I'm going to do that. Yeah, so we're going to make sure we just grab his head and hair, not like the cloak in the background. As you can see here, I reached the top of the frame, so I no longer need to trace the hair properly. I just need to find the next point that would go below. Oh, and also how I'm zooming in, I'm just holding control and scrolling my mouse wheel in and out, in case you didn't know. Okay, so we're far enough down to where we don't need any more. So again, we just connect the line. Now, sometimes when you do this, it's totally okay to, you know, play around with stuff. I might not even end up wanting to leave it like that. Sometimes it might not look good, so we're just gonna paste it. Oh, whoops. Frame. And then we can either, so it's gonna pop up the same thing like last time. It's asking if we want to just put it over the frame or as its own layer. I'm just gonna anchor it as a new layer for this test. And then, yeah, so I think that looks pretty cool. Now the cloak being right behind the frame, I think it looks fine. It looks a little weird. And then with it enabled, okay, I think with it enabled it actually looks pretty cool. But you might find sometimes you might even want to do the whole cloak. It's really up to you. It's kind of an experiment per art. There's times where I will take a whole section of a card, move it in front of the frame, spend like a couple minutes, cropping it all out just to decide that I don't like the way it looks. And sometimes text can kind of interfere. Usually with faces, I try to make sure that their eyes are well below the frame, because if their face gets into the frame area, it just doesn't look right. I like it though. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to disable everything but the art and just kind of take one last look and see if there's anything else with the artwork that I feel like would look cool being over the frame. But realistically, I'm not seeing anything. I think it looks good as is. So when we re-enable everything, that's pretty much our card. Now you can actually add your set symbols and everything in here, which is really cool. It's just like how you would in Card Conjure. So I'm gonna add one of my own little set symbols here. Let me grab that. So this is my own set symbol. So you can just scale it down however big you want it to be. I would imagine right about there should be good. Move it over. Cool. Alright, I like that. So yeah, you can add watermarks as well. If you ever add a watermark here, you'd want to put it over the frame, and then just behind everything else, like the text and stuff. And also, the cool thing is with GIMP, or just like any photo editing program, is there is opacity levels. So you can totally fade, your watermarks or set symbols out as much as you want. Like I can make it barely appear, or I can have it full opacity. So you have a lot of customization. There's a lot of different tools, colors, filters. You can even saturate your card from here. So if you wanted to make it more vibrant, you just go to colors, saturation, and you can scale this up as saturated as you want it to be, even all the way to black and white. Now, you are going to notice with that, if you are planning on saturating the color, I recommend doing it before you do any of these altering, just because those different layers have independent saturation levels. But I mean, it's really easy to fix. So I could say I want it to be more colorful. I'll just set it to 1250. I think that's bright enough. You can then go up to your pasted layers, go to saturation, and then just go to the last used one, and it will remember. Anytime you use a setting, it'll remember what it was used at, and it's going to automatically know without me having to program it in. So that's a quick way I could saturate the card, bring out some more color, and then I think we're done. I think this looks really cool. I really don't think we need to add anything else. So when you're done with the card, obviously I'm aggressively saving now that it actually crashed while I'm doing a tutorial, but you just go to File, Export As, and then for the file type here, we're gonna select PNG. I already have it on PNG, but that's my preferred method to export it in, is PNG. You can name it, it's gonna match the name of whatever your project is, so I'm just gonna change it to Sung Jin Woo PNG, and then you just do export. And then all this you can leave default. You don't need to change any of this. You just want to make sure your compression level is as high as it can be. It just affects the quality. Alright, and then we saved it to the desktop, so we just pull it up like this, and boom, we're done. Quality looks good. Everything on the card looks pretty cool. Now, the next thing I want to show is just some existing projects. Now that we've kind of gone through and actually created one ourselves, I'm just going to show you some existing projects and just different things that I've done just to give you kind of an idea, or just ideas of what you can do. And when I do my projects, I tend to always save these GIMP programs, because the cool thing is, if you decide you needed to adjust or change or add something, or even just change the text, the coolest part about this, sorry, I'm getting I'm getting off topic, but the coolest part about this is, say you made your altar, and you want to just change out the creature, you can just go into card conjure, change out the text. Now, depending on the frame you used, if the card you end up wanting to do isn't blue and black, you'll want to change the frame. But that's why it's nice to use these anytime you alter something, just having it be its own layer, because I can just change this frame out, drop a new frame in, enable these, and it's going to go right over the frame, and we're done. So this allows us, if we ever wanted to make a different Sung Jin Woo, different commander, I have everything done. I've done all the work, because sometimes you'll really there's a lot of detail you can put into some of these edits, and I'll show you one real quick. I think this was a good example. Yeah, so this one I just finished pretty recently for my Genshin remake. There is a lot of editing involved with this one, so I'm just gonna disable my artwork. So this is a good example of where I actually just put it over the frame rather than having it be its own layer, because there's multiple layers here. Like this I did individually, that individually. You'll have little bits and pieces where you'll just do a few parts at a time. So this is a really good example of being able to go back and change things out. For this one though, this frame is completely compromised, so if I wanted to use this art and this effect again, I put it over the frame, so I'd have to start over, which is unfortunate. But if I still wanted to use this custom frame, which I would, because it's meant for him specifically. I mean, it's purple. There aren't purple magic cards anyways. I can just interchange the text out and make it whatever I want, which is really cool. Because, you might get to a point with a project where you have a change of mind and you're like, actually, I don't want this guy to be a Tali, or maybe I don't want Sung Jinwoo to be the Scarab God. Maybe I want him to be a different one. So that's the biggest reason why I like to do these kind of things. And then let me pull one more up here. So here with this one, certain cards I like to just do subtle editing. This is again another custom frame I made. So this you wouldn't be able to do in Card Conjure. You'd have to actually make the frame yourself. With this one, all I actually really added was I put the lanterns in the front. I put these like cherry blossom leaves over the front, and that's pretty much it. Very subtle, but sometimes subtlety just looks really nice. I mean, with the card and the artwork, it really, if you look at this, like maybe you could put this area over it, but you can see it's well off in the background, so it wouldn't make sense that it would be behind this frame and over that frame, if that makes sense. So it's just one of those things where you'll just get a knack for identifying what you think should go over and behind things. It just takes a little bit of time. But again, that's pretty much the main thing I use GIMP for, is I change the text. I might add set symbols or things in post editing. You can also straight up just change the color of things too. So I don't always do this, but sometimes I will make a custom frame and it's a solid color, and then I'll actually go into colors and hue chroma. Oh, I don't have the right layer selected. Colors, hue chroma, and you can go in here and actually adjust the hue, and you're gonna see it starts changing this to a different hue. Obviously this looks really weird, and being that the right side is black, it's not gonna really change the black one. But I just want to point this out, that this is something you can do. It's pretty cool. You can find your hue, then you can adjust your chroma, which is how bright it'll actually make it. When you do that though, it starts messing with lots of colors and it just looks really goofy. So I usually don't recommend doing much with the chroma. And then with lightness, I mean, this just makes it bright or dark. But just want to show that you can, in post editing, adjust frame colors. There's a lot of different things you can do. But yeah, that's pretty much it with GIMP. It's the more you do this lasso tool, the faster you'll get at it. It does take a little bit of time at first, but as long as you have art that you don't have like, 30 different things you're trying to put over the frame, it really doesn't take much time, and it does end up looking really cool at the end of the day. And you can go as wild and crazy as you want with some of these cards. So yeah. Now, if you want also, because another thing that people do, and I think this will probably be the last thing I'll cover for now, because this video will just get way too long otherwise. Some people actually do prefer to put art actually over the text as well, and you can do that. The quickest way I'm gonna do that is I'm just gonna go to my pasted layer here. I think it's this one, right? Oh no, it's this one. So because I'm lazy, I'm just gonna copy this. So I'm copying this, and then we're gonna enable everything again, and I'm actually gonna paste it over the text. So you're gonna notice something weird when that happens. It doesn't, because of the way I'm applying this layer, it's not completely synced up. So that's okay. I'm just gonna make it a new layer, and then all you need to do is reposition the card to match how it actually is. It can take a little bit of lining up, but you just want to find a reference point where it looks exactly how it should be. I think that's pretty much perfect. Yeah. Sometimes it'll have you do it like that. You'll just have to reposition it. Just make sure it's lined up correctly. Everything looks perfect, and then you're done. So that will actually put it over the text. Now, obviously, if this is this is a little bit different because I already did the over the frame. But if you're just doing it and you do want to put it over the text, it's gonna be a lot easier. I'm just gonna what would we want to do? Let's say I wanted to go crazy and just grab the the whole head, the whole cloak and everything. I'm not going to do a bang up job. I'm just going to trace it real fast and undo these so I can see. So let's just say you were just like, I just want to put the whole cloak over the frame. I mean, this is going to look bad, so okay. So we're just going to place this actually over like that. And now it's lined up because I put it directly over the thing rather than copied an existing one. So if you ever want to put it over and apply it over the text, that's just how you do it. You just make sure you do it over the text layer. So yeah, I'm going to disable that. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about the GIMP program, feel free to message me in the comments on Discord. Again, I'm sure there's other ways you could go about doing this. Maybe there's ways that are easier. I just don't know of any other ways, and this is just easy for me just because you can really fine-tune the points and it doesn't really take that long. But I hope this really helps. There's a lot. It opens up a lot of doors for customization and card altering that you can do, and it can really make a card turn out super cool when it's done. So yeah, well, stay tuned for more, everybody. And I hope you guys all have a great day.